I know you don't think I'm ready. Woo, but
Hey, welcome to Monkey Time. My name's Todd. We're here live every Wednesday from 8 to 8:30. Then they rerun it. Is it Thursday at midnight, Carol? And I know it's Friday at 11, but I always forget if it's Wednesday at midnight or Thursday at midnight. Thursday at midnight. We have a phone-in guest. I don't know if you know this, but you have a chance this week to have an impact through a public comment period on some plans from the Raleigh Transportation Department. We have with us Fleming El Amin. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
And you are a transportation planner for the city of Raleigh.
Correct.
And you are the project manager for the comprehensive pedestrian plan.
That's correct.
Okay, can you, now already people are reaching for the Doritos, going flipping through the channel. No, wait. This is interesting stuff if you drive, walk, or bike around Raleigh. Now, can you tell us what you're doing with this comprehensive pedestrian plan? What does Raleigh need with the comprehensive pedestrian plan?
Certainly. And just to kind of start off, there was a study done a couple years ago from a group, a think tank in Washington, D.C. called Transportation for America.
Transportation for America?
Yes.
Okay.
And they did a study on the most dangerous metro areas in the country for pedestrians. And the Raleigh Cary metro area was ranked in the top 10 of all metros in terms of there being least desirable environments for pedestrians. And so that was one impetus for actually starting this process. We wanted to make sure that we were known for having a positive pedestrian environment and trying to come up with a strategic plan to accomplish making Raleigh a more walkable city.
Wow, that must have been quite a kick in the ass to the city because, you know, Meeker loved to talk about how this was like a bike-friendly city, you know, and all that. So to get ranked in the top 10 as the least pedestrian-friendly, one of the metro areas in the country must have been a real kick in the ass.
Yes, it was. And there was quite a few things that happened after that. For one, we started this process, but also we hired a pedestrian and bicycle coordinator who focuses on these issues. And we also have a bicycle and pedestrian advisory commission, which advises the city council on all matters concerning cycling and walking in Raleigh.
That's open to the public too, isn't it, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee?
Yes.
They accept input?
Absolutely, and they've been active in this process, and they meet also the third Monday of every month. But right now, they're actually putting a lot of focus on this particular planning effort, and so they will be discussing this at their meeting on next Monday. Okay,
now this Friday, is the deadline for which you're accepting public comment from people about what problems they see in pedestrian access across Raleigh, safety, access, things like that, handicap access as well, right? For access for disabled folks.
Sure.
This Friday is the closing of the public comment period.
Correct, and we do have it posted on our webpage. There are 8 chapters. The plan actually goes into, just to back up just real quickly, the overall goal of the plan or vision is to enhance pedestrian mobility in Raleigh and to assure that all streets adequately and safely integrate pedestrians within the existing roadway network and also any planned roadways that we have adequate facilities for pedestrians. And we have a series of goals that are set forth in the plan in terms of determining technical standards for improving pedestrian access in the land development process, but also coming up with a strategic plan to fund pedestrian enhancement over the next 5 to 10 years. The plan itself is a 20-year plan, though. Okay, and we've got the email address up if people have things they want to say. But when you talk about these changes, we're talking about things like putting sidewalks in where there are no sidewalks, like up along Capitol Boulevard, north of the Beltline there, where, you know, that would be one example, right? Yes, absolutely. Like adding sidewalks where there's no sidewalks on major thoroughfares in Raleigh. It's crazy that there's no sidewalks there. Sure, absolutely. And what happens is as development comes along, we typically have each developer is required to provide sidewalk along their frontage. But what happens is we have hodgepodge of development. There ends up being gaps along particular thoroughfares. And a lot of times the city will come back and fill in those gaps. But we have so many gaps, if you think about the entire street network throughout Raleigh, that we have to prioritize those. And so another thing that we'll be looking for comments on is the method or the evaluation criteria we're using to actually prioritize these projects.
So if a lot of people say, look, I want something done down on Martin Luther King Boulevard near Blunt Street, then that would move up the priority list. Or me.
Well,
he said, notice he didn't say yes.
We do actually have, and this is online for comment as well, there's the demand and needs analysis. And so what we did for every segment, and just to let you know, if folks go online, they'll see a list of 211 projects. So we've taken a good effort to identify all the missing gaps throughout the city along major streets in Raleigh.
I was surprised. I was surprised when I saw that list. You've got to prioritize from 1 to 211 or something, right?
Correct. But that's in terms of how we rank those. I mentioned in terms of needs analysis, we're looking at crashes along the street. We're looking at the street classification. Is it a collector street, a minor or major thoroughfare, or arterial street? The posted speed limit. We're also looking at information such as household income, and if persons within that area have choice in mode of transport, whether they do have a car, if not, if they're dependent on just transit or walking, that factors into the decision in terms of the ranking, and also the distance between either a crosswalk or a signal to allow for crossing safely at a crosswalk. And also if there's a presence of ADA curb ramps. So we're looking at all those in terms of needs, and then also demand if it's areas that folks want to walk to, such as a school or a park or a community center. We look at land uses that are generating pedestrian usage and demand itself. And so both the demand and needs analysis, each of those attributes I mentioned have a particular score, and we come up with an aggregate score, and each project is ranked and scored based on these criteria. Okay,
so I was being really overly simplistic when I was saying that people could call up and influence this directly. You've got science behind this. Yeah, you've got, okay, the rankings are pretty neat, and you've got a sort of 4-year plan listed in those on that webpage, which if you go to my Twitter page, folks, it links directly to the comprehensive pedestrian plan, where you fill in these little gaps all over the city over the next 4 years. Can I ask you a quick question? Is it true that it costs the city $1 million for a little bit over 2 miles of sidewalk? I saw that quote in there. Is that really? They must be expensive.
It actually varies. Okay. And there's a couple different numbers. There's in terms of what we use for planning purposes. If we looked at just the cost to construct the sidewalk, without including the design or if there's any right-of-way acquisition that's necessary, which typically is not the case. Yeah. But just rule of thumb, it's between $45 or $50 per linear foot, generally speaking, to build sidewalks on both sides of the street. But that's just pouring the concrete. It doesn't factor in other things. Okay, well, all right. It just sounded a lot to me. But I know when you think about it, it really is. There are a lot of factors that go into it. So what are the kinds of things that, can you tell us what some of the most dangerous streets in Raleigh are? Sure. Well, we've taken a look at the pedestrian crashes throughout the city over time. And what we've done, we worked with our NC DOT and got information on pedestrian crashes since the year 2000, from January 2000 to February 2012. And during that time, Hillsborough Street actually had the most number of pedestrian crashes. And that was a little over 80 crashes in that time, crashes involving pedestrians. Yeah. So when you call them, oh, go ahead. Well, I was just going to mention, in terms of exposure, that's generally when you have the most crashes. And so obviously in front of NC State, and there's also areas close to downtown where there's a lot of folks crossing the street frequently. So there's exposure there. Capitol Boulevard is also ranked pretty high. I was going to say Capitol Boulevard, yeah, because Capitol Boulevard, there's just, go ahead. That's a crazy street. Sure. So Hillsborough Street is the #1 street, and then in terms of pedestrian crashes, followed by Capitol Boulevard, and then the other streets that are ranked higher are New Bern Avenue, Glenwood Avenue, and Falls and News Road. And those are fairly wide avenues where there really aren't, where there's a lot of distance in between stop sign or stoplights,
and crosswalks sometimes.
Correct, but you have the exact opposite on Hillsborough Street, where there's not, there's
too many crossings.
To cross, but there's just such a volume of pedestrian crossings that the exposure to getting into accident is that much higher.
Are y'all talking with some accessibility folks, some people with organizations for people with disabilities about what they consider the biggest needs for access are?
Yes, we actually had the Mayor's Committee for Persons with Disabilities had a seat on the table. We actually had a steering committee, a pedestrian plan steering committee throughout the development of the plan, and we had a cross-section of the population in Raleigh. So we had folks from the Transit Authority. We also had persons that were blind. Were also folks that were disabled. So we've gotten actually a cross-section of the community and got very different perspectives. But we had about 20 people on our steering committee, and those populations were represented at the table.
Okay, we're talking with Fleming El Amin. Is that right? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Who is a transportation planner with the City of Raleigh and is the project manager for this new comprehensive pedestrian plan that they're doing, where they're trying to fill in all these gaps in sidewalks and redo some intersections like Avon Ferry Road and Centennial, which is a horror show of an intersection if you're on a bike or a pedestrian sometimes. And so this is going to be happening over the next couple of years, but this week is the ending of the public comment period. And so we wanted to have you on, have somebody on to just encourage people to send in information. And the website is linked to my Twitter page, and the email address is pedestrian.plan@raleighnc.gov. Is that right?
That's correct, and they can provide comments through that venue. There's also an opportunity to just go to the web page and make comments directly on the web page at myRaleighIdeas.com.
My Raleigh what? MyRaleighIdeas.com?
RaleighNC.gov.
Yeah.
And go to the bottom of the page. There's a let's see. Let me maybe open.
Oh, that's all right. Well, we'll link to it on my Twitter page. They can go to that and we'll do it. So, is there anything you can share with us about what the kind of feedback you've gotten? As a last question, is there anything you can share with us about some of the things that have come in during this public comment period that have been surprising, maybe, or anything that's particularly unusual or interesting? Are you getting
honestly, what it mainly is people are taking a real close look at the list, and they either want to discuss why their project is ranked lower than what they anticipated or would like to see, and so we kind of go through the criteria. But also, so that's been the norm in terms of the majority of the comments that have come in. And what I guess was really coming out is that folks are trying to make us aware of situations that we may have not caught during the development of the plan, as far as intersections that they have trouble crossing that maybe we didn't highlight in the plan. And so that's been the lion's share of the comments that we've received to date. But that's why we really would encourage folks to go and look at the list and look at the priorities and the ranking criteria, and then we can have a conversation about which particular elements are getting high scores based on the value as far as what would make a street more safe. And so those are the kinds of comments that we're getting primarily.
And would you say that that you've been, have you been alerted to something that you had overlooked by some of these comments, an intersection or something? Is there anything like that that's happened?
What we have noticed that there are, as I mentioned, even doing the most thorough investigation, there are still gaps in the sidewalk that we may have overlooked.
I'm not blaming you. I'm just wondering if the input has been valuable. I mean, that's really...
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the reason why we really are pushing hard to get folks to comment on the plan, because we don't want to leave anything off the table and have to go back and correct later. So I'm really encouraging folks to really take a hard look at that list, and if there's any missing sidewalk that they are aware of that we didn't capture, we want to make sure we have that captured and ranked, because what will happen once this is adopted, we got a transportation bond last October, and we're going to be funding those projects that are ranked the highest. Yeah. And so if there's something that we have, is not included on the list, it may be pushed back to later years unless we identify it early on.
Okay. Thank you. Fleming El Amin, transportation planner with the City of Raleigh, and this Friday is the end of the public comment period. If you want to take a look at what they've supplied, and they have lots of maps at the city site. And again, if you go to my Twitter page, I linked to it just right before I came here tonight, so it should be right up there at the top. Thank you. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you have my email address also, but folks are more than welcome to email me if they have a specific question. It's my first name, Fleming.el-amin@raleighnc.gov.
Okay, can we put up his name, Carol, there real fast? And then it's just your name at raleighnc.gov.
Yeah,
Fleming.el-amin, L-Amin, right?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, at Raleigh. All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Yeah,
All
good
right.
luck.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back. I really think if you know anybody who's got who's in a wheelchair, or as a person with a disability, or has has some mobility issues at all, blind, whatever, now would be a good time to help them take a look, or find a way to take a look at this plan, or just get their input in, like, where do we need ramps for wheelchairs in Raleigh where there aren't any, or sidewalks, right? That, to me, would be one of the major things we could do right now. All right, Carol, let's take a break, and we'll be right back. So here we are at North American Video, who gives me free video rentals, and then we pass on our reviews to you. We want to thank them for being a sponsor, but so this is really good. Like most music documentaries, they tend not to just shut up and show the music. I think maybe that's a rights issue with regard to showing a certain length of clip, but there's enough music in it that it's great. But God, I would just love to. I need to rent a concert video of Bob Marley, especially in the mid to late '70s. God. But anyway, it's really good. It's long, so you might want to divide it up. Don't force yourself, feel like you have to watch the whole thing all at once, although we did. We just plowed right through it. It's just fantastic. I had no idea Bob Marley's father was a rich white guy. But anyway, that's a good one. Okay, this one is really, really good. It's he's not a zombie, he's not a vampire. He does have to suck blood to survive, but he's a revenant. And it's a comedy. It's got some good scary elements too. It's also a lot goofy, but takes some neat twists and turns. I'm just gonna say that it's the best horror comedy I've seen in a while, and it's got the most messed up scene involving a severed head that you're ever going to see in a zombie revenant vampire horror comedy. Anyway, so it kind of came and went through the theaters without me even hearing about it. I saw it on the shelves. This is what's great about the new releases shelves, you just kind of scan the new releases shelves, and it's much better than what Netflix recommends, because you find stuff like this. This one I saw in the theaters. It was, I almost never go see movies in the theaters anymore, but it's a cute, quirky indie comedy, and I know sometimes the dialogue on those gets really precious, and you're like, oh God, not another cute, quirky indie comedy, but it's really fun. It's got this guy he puts an ad saying wanted somebody to go back in time with me, and it's kind of a sci-fi movie. But it's really funny, and the dialogue is quirky and cutesy like indie movie dialogue can be, but also just fairly funny. I was really impressed. Anyway, if you want a kind of, sort of, maybe sci-fi movie with cute, quirky indie love comedy elements, highly recommend Safety Not Guaranteed. You won't be disappointed. It'll make you laugh in a cute, quirky indie way. Finally, you probably don't need me to tell you about this one, but it's cute. Jennifer Aniston is actually pretty good in it. It's one of those, Judd Apatow produced comedies, and the thing I don't like about Bridesmaids and The Hangover and all those, they're so cruel to their characters, like really, really cruel to their characters. But this one, about a hippie commune where these two mainstreamers in the middle there stumble onto it, it's actually, it's not great, but if you're looking for something a little edgy with like a nudist and a little edginess there, a little bit of stuff about we're all into free love, then I would recommend Wanderlust. It's a little edgy, but it's enough you can watch it probably with your parents, maybe. But it's not cruel to its characters. It doesn't make its characters really, you know, suffer awfully, and at least not too much. And anyway, it's a little cliche. The plot's kind of like, let's save the hippie commune from the evil developers, you know. But that doesn't come in till an hour in, and the rest of it's actually kind of funny. So recommend it. That's it for this week's recommendations. Thanks again to North American Video for letting us, you know, sponsoring the show and letting us film their new releases. Man, they get new releases before Netflix and before Redbox. I'm just telling you, they do. A lot of them anyway. Thanks to them for their sci-fi section is not bad either, for letting us do this.
Oh, right there, right there. Oh, that's good. Oh, people, you got look, you got to get your cats and dogs right here. Oh, look at the fuzz going. Look at all that fur flying. Oh, that feels good. Carol, I got to tell you something. People need to change their cat's water more often. Yes. You do. You can't just add more water when it evaporates, because you see, that leaves stinky water in the bottom and then water on top. And then you pour the water in and it mixes. And then you get this kind of film on the bottom of the bowl. You know what I'm talking about, Carol? You get this kind of slechy film at the bottom of the bowl. Listen, it's not rocket science. Wipe out, empty the bowl, wipe it out, you know, with a paper towel, clean water inside completely. There, it's simple. And you know what else, Carol? I took my neighbor's dog to the dog park the other day, and oh, God, she loved it. She loved it. Take your dog to the Oakwood Dog Park. Really, as long as it's not a bitey dog. Because this dog was scared. She's really skittish, which makes her adorable. But she's really skittish. But then within about 15, you know how you kids, they don't want to go? I didn't want to go to summer camp. And then I had to be forced, and then I had a great time. You know. Yeah, same thing with dogs and dog parks. Take your dog to the dog park. All right, so, Petraeus. Carol, we got to talk about this guy. First off, yes, it's true that the media is more involved in it because it's about sex. Yes. And here's the thing. It would be nice if the media would have been a little bit more critical about Petraeus when he was trying to pull off this, quote, surge. Remember the surge? Huh? Oh, yeah, it worked, it worked. Everybody loved Petraeus. He played those reporters like a violin. Seriously, there's a great article by a guy named Hastings, Michael Hastings, at BuzzFeed, where he looks at Petraeus' career. Hastings, Carol, is the guy that got that other general, McIntyre, fired because he was a Rolling Stone reporter, and McIntyre said horrible things about Obama while he was in Afghanistan. And Obama said, dude, you just talked to a reporter and dissed your boss in public, you're fired. So anyway, Hastings has a really savage look at Petraeus' career. Don't you feel bad for his wife, Carol? Yeah. She's really, you know who she hung out with? Elizabeth Warren. Petraeus' wife hangs out with Elizabeth Warren and has been working on military, on scams, financial scams, banks foreclosing soldiers' homes, illegally foreclosing on soldiers' homes while they're out of the country. That's what Petraeus' wife has been working on for the last few years, with Elizabeth Warren, closely. That's the woman he just dissed. So anyway, here's the thing. Can we talk about Benghazi real fast? Yeah. So the right-wing nightmares about Benghazi are this. This is it. Obama's people, Obama on September 11th, talked about in the morning, that morning, how al-Qaeda was on the run. Then al-Qaeda launches an attack on our Libya, on the compound in our ambassadorial compound in Benghazi. By the next day, the State Department knew it was al-Qaeda. The right-wing nightmare is that in order to avoid the political fallout of al-Qaeda attacking, Obama's people let the myth that that anti-Islamic movie sparked this spread. And there was confusing messages to its own people, who then spewed confusing messages in the press about it for days. Now we know that that movie had nothing to do with it, pretty much, except as a cover. for what was obviously a pretty well-planned attack, ready to go at a moment's notice, right? But really, the worst that they're saying, I mean, the real worst is just the lack of preparation, and then the lack of military response to save these people. There wasn't much of a response. It wasn't very well coordinated. But at its worst, the worst the right-wing Fox network people can come up with, the Benghazi story, not even close to as bad as what Bush, Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, Rumsfeld, and all those guys were doing constantly, consistently on a regular basis. McCain is talking about accountability for the statements made the day after, right? By diplomats. But where's McCain's call for accountability from Condoleezza Rice, who said nobody could have foreseen they'd ever use airplanes to attack buildings after 9/11, when she'd been specifically warned about that just that year? Where's that accountability? Again, the worst right-wing nightmares about Benghazi don't even come close. And they're bad. There's some serious flaws there. I'm not saying Obama really screwed up on this. Not even close to what the Bush people did on a daily basis. Fact. All right. We'll see you next week.